Uncle Beard back again. I think we'll continue today talking about basic knife techniques, but first I just want to spend a couple of minutes talking to you about actually choosing a knife. Now for our purposes that boils down to two groups, if you like. We'll call them groups for now, and that's a full tang knife and a hidden tang knife, or a stick tang, rat-tailed tang. I'm not going to get too technical onto the whys and the wherefores of that. Joe Price does a great video on that, explaining, you know, the different types of tang, but yeah, so I'll just show you a couple of knives. That's what we'd call that's what we'd term as a full tang knife. So the steel is all the full width of the handle. It's all one piece. Very, you know, super, very strong knife. So that'd be a full tang knife. You know, simple enough there. And then we're talking about a stick tang or hidden tang knife. There was something like the Knife Bushcraft Black, which has a partial piece of metal that runs down the handle there. So those are your two basic types of knives that, you know, suit our purposes for woodcraft and such. Now also, when you're choosing a knife, you want to look at grinds. Now for me personally, for beginners right through to guys who carry knives all the time, a flat grind, or what's known as a Scandi grind. When we're talking about a flat grind, that's what we're talking about. So for our purposes, probably as a beginner, a flat grind is probably best. Now there are variations on a flat grind. Again, this is a custom piece from Adam Gray in the States. Now that, I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but that has got a very slight convex to the grind, and that's known as a Scandi grind, which is a Scandi Vex, which is a hybrid between a flat grind and a convex. It's a very strong edge, very reluctant to chip, and it's got a lot of the same characteristics that we like in a flat grind, the capability for fine carving, etc., and the simplicity of sharpening, obviously. Now again, when you're choosing a knife, you want to be looking at what steels you want in. For me personally, I like a carbon blade, but carbon, like the Bushcraft Black, that's a carbon blade. Get a great edge on it, easy to keep sharp, good strong knife, and also you can get good sparks from that spine for your ferro rod. But that really wouldn't suit every purpose, wouldn't suit everybody. Some people like stainless. Now if you are going to go for stainless, try and go for something like the Morikans bar. Again, this is fast becoming one of my favourite knives, is the Cans bar. Now that's a stainless blade, but there's stainless and there's stainless. Now a lot of us grew up buying cheap junk knives, survival knives if you like. So 440 stainless. A lot of the cheaper knives are 440 stainless, which will only take you so far. It's terrible to sharpen, it's terrible to keep sharp. So if you are going to go for a stainless knife, look a bit into your steels. I believe that the Mora stainless is a Sandvik 12C27. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comment section. But so obviously, if you're working in salt water, for example, if you're on a fishing boat, or you're doing a sea fishing or coastal foraging, stuff like that, you probably want to go for a stainless blade, simply because in that sort of environment, salt air environment, salt water environment, a carbon blade like the Bushcraft Black or the AA Forge, especially if you spent a lot of money on a knife, you're probably not going to want to carry that in a salt air environment. Now the third thing to consider is blade length. Now The rule of thumb for beginners as well as for a general purpose knife is that the blade length should be roughly the length of your palm. Now that's not the same in all cases, but for a good general purpose belt knife, that's a good rule of thumb to remember. So the blade should not really be much longer than the width of your own palm. Now there are exceptions to that rule. You know, if you're wanting something, for example, like the Horseman, which is kind of more of a heavy camp knife, but heavy processing wood. Now that obviously that is a hell of a lot bigger than anybody's palm width, unless you're some kind of freak of nature. But I wouldn't advise a knife like the Horseman for a beginner. So if we go back to the range that are available for Mora, now I know I bang on about Mora a lot, but they are bang for the buck. They can't be beaten. And for a beginner who's going to make mistakes, who's going to damage blades, because you will damage a blade, don't worry about it, it's fixable. It's better to damage a blade than yourself. Something like, if you go for carbon steel, something like the Bushcraft Black is a very good all-round, very capable knife. And you can go a long way with this knife. It's carbon steel blade, so that is something to consider. It does have a little bit of sort of a chemical bluing on it, but yeah, that's something to consider, that it is carbon steel, so it's not just, you know, throw it in when you get back from a trip, just throw it in a box and forget about it. You know, just look after your knife, even if it's, you know, only cost you 20 or 30 quid. If you look after it, there's no reason why a knife like that shouldn't last you a lifetime. If your budget's a little bit better, and you do decide that you want something a little bit more custom, there's a lot of great guys out there who can make you the knife of your dreams. For me personally, one of my favourite knife makers is Adam Gray from AA Forge in the States, who made me this full tang knife. Now obviously this comes at a premium, but for me as a collector and a knife maker and a knife user, I wanted something really special. So Adam made me that, and it's an absolutely stunning piece. But that won't do anything. That knife won't do anything that knife won't do. So there's no reason why you need to run out and spend hundreds of pounds on a knife like that. It's more about learning to use these in conjunction with this. You know, £1,000 worth of knife will still cut you the same, and you'll still make the same mistakes. So that's also something to consider. An expensive knife won't make you a better carver, you know. So don't get caught up in this. You need an Allen Woodlaw, or you need something else. So yeah, so that's a little bit about knife choice. Now one other thing to remember about knife choice, and this is something that is overlooked a hell of a lot. People talk about grinds, people talk about different steels, people talk about blade size, you know, blade thickness, 90-degree spines. A lot of people, you don't get that many people talking about something that to me is as important, if not more important, than the shape of the blade, and that's the handle. Now, there's a lot of knives you see out there, especially on the American market, that have got all these fancy scallops and swages and facets in the handle. Now to me, they're okay if you're wearing a set of tactical gloves. Now if you want to wear gloves, that's fine, I ain't got a problem with that, it's up to you. Me personally, I don't like wearing gloves, so I want something that's got a good comfortable grip, that's not got any facets that are going to create what's termed as a hot spot. So you want a good comfortable grip that's got no sharp corners, nothing's proud on it. It's nice and comfortable. You'll get a good tight grip on that. You can get a good twist if you're splitting wood, and something that's you're going to be able to use for long periods of time, that's not going to give you any blisters. I mean, I'm lucky, I suppose I'm lucky that I work with my hands for a living, so I've got quite tough paws. But even with hands like mine, a knife can become uncomfortable and difficult to use, and if you're out for long periods of time, that can be a real issue. If you're having to repair or treat your hands, and you are out for long periods of time, then that can be as serious as anything, damaging your feet or getting a cut on your face or damaging an eye. If your hands are damaged or painful, then you're not going to be able to do the most basic things like prepare fire, and feed yourself. So yeah, just don't be scared when you're going to buy a knife, or if you see a knife that someone's got that you like. Don't be scared just to ask, can I just, and give it a good hard squeeze. That's usually first time. If you give it a good hard squeeze like that, you can feel those hot spots straight away. Turn it blade up. When you're doing that lever grip, turn it blade up. Is there a hot spot there? Is the handle too big for your hands? Not everybody's hands are the same size. Is the handle too small? Is it too narrow? So choosing a knife is as much about the handle as it is about the blade. Now, finally, another thing is maybe not as important, but the sheath. A knife is pretty useless in the field without a good solid sheath. Now, these injection molded sheaths that Mora do, they're good, they're durable. If you get it dirty, you can chuck it in and wash it, but they're just not very aesthetic. So I do own several Mora knives. They're great knives, but I majority of the time would go for a leather sheath. Now this is a custom piece that I did for myself. The knives that come in leather sheaths are not necessarily good knives. The knives that come in plastic sheaths are not necessarily bad knives. But I would say to someone, a knife like the Bushcraft Black, combined with a really nice sheath, is gonna cost you less than 100 quid, and I would rather pay that for a good knife like the Bushcraft Black and a nice leather piece. I would rather pay 100 quid for those two items than go out and pay 100 quid for a middle of the road Bushcraft knife. We won't go into who I don't like and don't like, but that's my 2 pence on that. And also the advantage is obviously this is a custom fit to this knife, but if you go for a knife from someone like Toby from Red Kite Leather Works, or Simon Harding, or Paul Daw, if you go for a sheath from those guys, they're quite a broad fitting sheath. So if you do decide to upgrade from a Bushcraft Black at a later date to something like that, there's no reason why that knife won't fit into the custom sheath that you've had made. And you know, you're personalising your kit, which I tend to find if you personalise your kit, you tend to take better care of it. So those are some things to consider, guys. I'm not going to waffle on too much longer because I've waffled on enough, but yeah, lots of things to consider there when you're choosing a knife. So I hope you enjoyed that. Uncle Beard out.